I was talking with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago because I was trying to describe to him this thing that I'd kind of become aware of but was feeling really uncomfortable about. And we're talking about being at parties together. And I'm telling him this experience that I have where I walk up to a group of people, everybody's talking, he's in the group. I want to just join the group and participate. And in this, he feels like on the same level with everyone else. Everybody's trading ideas back and forth. It seems comfortable. When I speak, something happens. And I have always been under the impression that what happens is I ruined it. Because there's a thing and it changes. The room changes. The experience of the social space changes. People get very quiet. People look at me really intensely. And I get deeply uncomfortable. I'm so uncomfortable and unsure, and I'm suddenly just aware that everybody's looking at me, and I feel like I must have done something socially wrong, and that's why this good thing that was existing is no longer existing. My friend with the phone, he starts laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing at? And he's like, no, Gray. People like you. And you've got this thing about you that makes people want to listen to you. So much so that they're hanging on your every word. And I suddenly had two very different perspectives of the same exact moment that had played out with us at so many parties where I was under the assumption, was under the impression that I wasn't liked. I wasn't actually wanted. And I'd ruined something by being there, by speaking, by showing up. And he tells me, no, actually, it's not that at all, it's the opposite. Even before that conversation, I started to realize that there was something happening. Something that either I was unaware of this whole time, or something new, or both. It's first thing in the morning, and I am not a morning guy. But I've committed to this group of artists whom I like and love working with. And I say yes to getting up in the morning. And of course, as you do, I oversleep. And so I'm dragging myself out of bed, trying to wash the sleep out of my eyes before I get on this Zoom call that I don't want to be on at this time of morning. And I'm having technical difficulties, and I feel awful about being late and wasting everyone's time, and I am stressed and exhausted. I get put in the waiting room, and I start to have this feeling of panic. I get this warm welcome, and I am startled and surprised. It's early, they seem very excited. I'm not that late, and we don't all know each other very well. I'm told to watch the first little bit of the call right before I come on. I'm watching this call, and it's boring. It's awful. Everybody seems tired. Nobody seems like they want to be there. Uh, they're struggling to connect with each other. And then they're told I'm in the waiting room. They find out I'm in the waiting room. And everybody like brightens, gets excited, and perks up. And they were so excited to see me. And then I get to see on camera myself look confused at their excitement, at their joy, at their welcome. I see this weird splitting of 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 me at the moment, me watching the moment, and the side of things that I had no idea what was happening, but I thought I did. I thought I did. And was wrong. And in learning that I was wrong, I've noticed I'm wrong a lot about how people see me, value my relationship with them, value me in their lives. And sometimes people get a sense of this and they assume that I have an issue with self-esteem. And actually, self-concept is more complicated than that. Self-concept is a lot of different things. There's a lot of moving parts in it that involve more than just self-esteem. So there's what you know to be true about yourself. Then there's how you feel about those truths about yourself. And then there's another concept that is so little talked about, I didn't know existed, which is considered your social self. How you think other people perceive you. And where you fit into groups. A lot of times, we think about self-esteem and self-concept in a bubble. That it's a thing that takes place in you and only you. You may receive messages from the outside world about who you are, but that just typically gets internalized into oneself. There's a concept of a looking glass self. This idea of a part of what makes you understand who you are is in as much as your relationship to other people as it is your internal sense of yourself. With this looking glass self, what happens is you take note of someone being perceived, and then you imagine what thoughts, what judgments they may have about you, and then how they may feel about you. The problem is it's not always right. And yet, it too can get internalized with your self-concept. This is not a simple thing. But what I realized recently is I have a bit of an issue. I've got a cognitive issue here where my realities are not matching up. The way I feel about myself is I think I'm a nice enough guy. I think I'm pretty average. I like myself on a whole. I think there are good things about me. I think there are bad things about me. But I have, for my entire life, been under the impression that other people didn't care that much about me. They didn't dislike me, but they weren't like excited either. And I'm learning I'm wrong. I'm learning I'm wrong, which I know to some people is such a weird thing to complain about. Gray, why are you complaining about being liked? Why are you complaining about being liked more than you thought you were? Isn't it great to be liked? Isn't that what you want? And I'm like, well, of course, everybody wants to be liked. That's not the thing. It's that I've been living my life under the assumption that I wasn't. It's that detail changes every interaction that I've had. Every time I thought I didn't understand, or I thought or perceived it to be a certain way, it might not have been. And now, I don't know what my relationships are like. I don't know my impact on other people. I don't know my responsibility to them. I didn't know until recently that somebody, like a dear friend of mine now, thought I was a little aloof at first. I just thought he didn't care about me. And I was like, well, I like myself and I don't really need other people to like me. Like, that's fine. But it's recontextualizing everything. But this has been a years-long process. This isn't like something that just appeared out of nowhere either. But I've been really grappling with it. It's not made a lot of sense to me. How can that be true? How can I believe that? Why can't I feel it? Why can't I feel it on the inside? If that's true. What's happening? And nobody could tell me. They're like, Gray, didn't you know? And I'm like, no, I didn't know. And they're like, you didn't? What do you mean you didn't know? And I was like, I don't know. I thought everybody was just pretty like, on me. And I was like, that's just what I assumed. That's what I thought was happening. And I've been living my life that way. Trying to be polite, trying not to be a burden, trying not to bother people because everybody's pretty on me. And that's fine. But then the pandemic happened. And I started attending those meetings. And I started noticing this thing more and more. And I started doing these voice memos with friends. And I'd get anxious about, because they would get kind of long. We would always get kind of long-winded. I like a voice memo podcast from my close people. I don't know about y'all, but this became an asynchronous way to stay in contact with some particular folks. And it was and is working really good for me. I really like that mode of communication. But I would get worried that I didn't remember what I said towards the beginning. So I started re-listening to them. And suddenly, I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And I'd noticed that I would enjoy re-listening to our conversations, our back and forths. And I was like, oh yeah, that's normal, that's fine. And I started getting into video. And I started being told, oh, well, you're gonna hate watching yourself on camera. You're just gonna hate hearing yourself talk. And don't get me wrong, I'm not always happy with how I look. I'm not always happy with how I sound. But I notice myself being drawn in to this thing because editing video forces you to look at yourself from a very different perspective. Because suddenly you are part of the art. You're a part of the performance. You're not just experiencing what you're experiencing and going through that lens, but you're also watching yourself do that and then questioning what other people are perceiving, what they'll feel, what they'll think. what your gesticulations mean on camera. In a way, I never get to see my own face. I didn't know. I knew my face was loud, but I didn't know what it was like to witness me be excited and talk in real time. I had no idea. And so I watched these videos back and I'm like, oh, is this what I'm like? Is this what I'm like? Is this the person that you see? Because how I feel and what I thought and how I look and how I feel from the outside isn't the same. It's like astronomically different. And I had no idea. And so then I started feeling weird about the fact that, hey, actually, I will watch my videos. Like, there's always, like, it feels like a weird arrogance to say that there's something about it that, like, I get sucked into. And I don't know how I feel about it. Because my internal experience is still, I don't think I'm that interesting. And then I see some of these videos, and I'm like, actually, like, how am I listening to this? Why am I invested? I said it. I am the one who said it. Why am I invested? And suddenly, I've been having to address the fact that I have a bunch of cognitive dissonance that I've been avoiding. And I couldn't make videos anymore. I couldn't make videos. I was just avoiding making videos because I knew I was going to have to address the fact that, like, I have this belief that's not true. That everyone else didn't know that I had. And has potentially been shaping my life, shaping my interaction, shaping my confidence, shaping the gigs I take, the things that I do, how I interact with everyone else. Because my guess at what you thought of me, how much you valued me, how much you liked me around me, how much you wanted me to be around, was incorrect. Ain't that something?